Long, long ago, there lived a man named Jacob. He had 12 sons, and one of his favorite was a young man named Joseph, who was about 17 years old. And Joseph had a special gift of foreseeing dreams, and those dreams coming true. So when he told his family about his dreams for the first time, and he told them he had dreamed that his brother's grains of wheat had bowed to him, they all thought that Joseph was going to rule over him one day, so the brothers became jealous. However, Jacob and his wife became a little curious to what possibly could be going on. Jacob told Joseph to follow his brothers who were guarding the sheep. Now, his brothers were very jealous, so they sort of ditched him, and Joseph could not find his brothers. However, his brothers had a devious plan to kill Joseph. So they took off his coat and started beating him up, until Reuben, the eldest brother, stepped in and said, "Don't beat up our own brother, don't kill him. We cannot shed our own blood." However, another brother named Judah had a different idea. As soon as Reuben left, he suggested to throw Joseph into a hole and later sell him to Egyptians. And that's what they did. And to cover that Joseph was gone, they decided to take his beautiful coat that his mother had made him, Rachel, and dip it in blood to make the parents think that Joseph had been eaten by wild animals. It took several days to get to Egypt, but eventually Joseph got there and he got sold to a very rich man. Potiphar, a rich Egyptian and also one of Pharaoh's officials, was the master of Joseph. And he let Joseph do everything due to his many talents. He had more privileges than any other slave. However, Potiphar had a wife, and his wife really liked Joseph a lot. This is the awkward part of the whole story. When Potiphar's wife asked Joseph to go to bed with her, Joseph said no about 1,000 times. "I will not go to bed with you." "Come to bed with me," she says. "Come to bed with me." But however, Joseph ran, and she blamed Joseph for the whole thing. She said, "This Hebrew has brought us to make a sport of us. He came in here to sleep with me, but I screamed." So Potiphar imprisoned Joseph and believed his wife, because he's an idiot. And he was imprisoned with a cupbearer and a baker. And they both started yelling at him and saying, "We both had dreams, but there's no one to interpret them." And Joseph said to them, "Do not interpretations belong to God? Tell me your dreams." So the cupbearer said, "In my dream I saw a vine in front of me, and on the vine were 3 branches. As soon as it budded, it blossomed, and its clusters ripened into grapes. Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes, squeezed them into Pharaoh's cup, and put the cup in his hand, and he asked, 'What does it mean?' Joseph explained that the 3 branches are 3 days. Within 3 days, Pharaoh will lift up your head and restore you out of your prison, and you will put Pharaoh's cup in his hand, just as I used to do when you were a cupbearer." And this is when the baker spoke up and said, "I had a dream too. On my head were 3 baskets of bread. In the top basket were all kinds of baked goods for Pharaoh, but the birds were eating them out of the basket on my head." Joseph explained that the 3 baskets were 3 days. Within 3 days, Pharaoh will lift off your head and impale your body on a pole, and the birds will eat away your flesh. Sure enough, this happened, and the baker was hung, but the cupbearer came out scot-free. And Joseph told him, "Please remember me and tell Pharaoh about my dreams." He said, "I will, I won't forget." However, Joseph was in prison for another 2 years. Then one night, Pharaoh had a dream, and this dream haunted his mind for days and days. And finally, the cupbearer told Pharaoh that he knew a man who could interpret dreams, which was Joseph. So finally, Joseph was finally freed from prison, and Pharaoh told Joseph his dream. He said, "In my dream, I was standing on the bank of the Nile when out of the river came up 7 cows, fat and sleek, and they grazed among the reeds. After them, 7 other cows came up, scrawny and very ugly and lean. The lean, ugly cows ate up the 7 fat cows that came up first. But even after they ate them, no one could tell that they had done so, and they looked just as ugly as before. Then Pharaoh told Joseph his second dream. In my dream, I saw 7 heads of grain, full and good, growing on a single stalk. After them, 7 other heads sprouted, withered and thin and scorched by the east wind. The thin heads of grain swallowed up the 7 good heads. I told this to the magicians, but no one could explain it to me. Joseph explained that both dreams meant the same thing. There are to be 7 years of good crops and 7 years of famine. Joseph also suggested to store away some of the crops from the good years and leave it for the years of famine so that people won't go hungry and Egypt will survive. And that is what they did. And Pharaoh appointed Joseph second in charge under him. So during the 7 years of famine, everyone came to Egypt for food, including Joseph's own brothers. But Joseph questioned his brothers and did not let them buy food and told them they are spies. Because Joseph looks Egyptian now, his brothers could not recognize him. But the brothers replied, "Your servants were 12 brothers, the sons of one man who lives in the land of Canaan. The youngest is now with our father, and one is no more," meaning Joseph. But Joseph still didn't believe them and decided to say, "You're spies, and this is how you will be tested. As surely as Pharaoh lives, you will not leave this place unless your youngest brother comes here. Send one of your numbers to get your brother." So, one of the boys got arrested, and the rest sent out to get the youngest brother, Benjamin. Now, Benjamin was the new favorite in the family, due to the fact that Jacob's first son, with his wife, Rachel, had died, or so they thought. So, the boys snagged Benjamin in order to prove to Joseph, who they didn't know was Joseph, that they actually had 12 people in the family and they weren't spies. And Joseph was surprised to see another brother, thinking that they were lying. So he decided to pull one more test to see how true and loving his brothers now were. To test if his brothers had changed, he decided to invite his brothers to a feast with him. He gave most food to Benjamin, sort of spoiling him, trying to make his brothers a little mad. The next morning, he decided to give them all their food. Plus, he slipped a silver cup into one of the boys' sacks. That boy would be Daddy's boy, Benjamin. So the next morning, Joseph accused his brothers of stealing the cup of Pharaoh. But the boys argued otherwise. Joseph then found the cup in Benjamin's sack. But Judah went up to him and said, "Pardon your servant, my lord. Let me speak a word with my lord. Do not be angry with your servant, though you are equal to Pharaoh himself." My lord asked his servants, "Do you have a father or a brother?" And we answered, "We have an aged father, and there is a young son born him in his old age. His brother is dead, and he is the only one of his mother's sons left, and his father loves him." So the boys argued against Benjamin being arrested. And they continued to tell Joseph that his father loves him very much, and he can't afford to lose another son. Joseph questioned why, or what does they mean by losing another son, and they explained how they tried to kill their own brother. At this, Joseph finally understands that his brothers have changed, so he decides to make himself known to his brothers. He tells them, "Come closer to me. I'm your brother Joseph, the one you sold into Egypt. And now do not be distressed and do not be angry with yourselves for selling me here, because it was to save the lives that God sent me ahead of you. For 2 years now, there's been a famine in the land, and for the next 5 years there will be no plowing or reaping. But God sent me ahead of you to preserve for a remnant of earth and to save your lives by a great deliverance." And so, Jacob, his sons, and everybody else, the whole family, came down to Egypt to live a happy life. until we get to Exodus, but that's another story.